Do you believe in miracles?
Petrov control, back to Varlamov, skating in on the left.
Making. Do you believe in miracles?
Petrov control, back to Varlamov, skating in on the left. Insane. Varlamov shooting it into the American. 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
The Miracle on Ice was a hockey match between the USA and the Soviet Union. It was a miracle because the Soviet Union were heavily favored. They had won the last 4 Olympic ice hockey gold medals, but the USA pulled off the spectacular win. This was a turning point because they were in a conflict in the Cold War. This win gave the USA hope, and they would eventually take down the Soviets at the end of the Cold War.
The Cold War, USA versus the Soviet Union, democracy and capitalism versus communism, plays out in a variety of forms. From the Korean War, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Cuba, and the space race. Shockingly, one of the most important Cold War competitions happened on the ice during the 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York. Known as the Miracle on Ice, the United States hockey team defeating the USSR is easily the most important sporting event historically and politically in world history.
The Miracle on Ice is a turning point in history because the U.S. were losing the Cold War. The Soviets were projected to win the match, but the U.S. shocked everyone when they won. This occurrence led to the U.S. winning the Cold War. Many people now look past the seemingly small event in such a large war, but this is a large turning point in history because it showed the U.S. had a chance at beating the Soviets. Then they did so. The win also gave the Americans a renewed sense of optimism. It became more than just a hockey match. It became one of the most important sporting events historically and politically in world history.
He's doing that well thus far against the Soviets. Buzz Snyder losing it out to the point. Slap shot, and it was deflected in from the point. The Soviet Union takes a 1-0 lead. Kasatonov's slap shot was deflected in past Craig.
According to an article, The Miracle on Ice by Sports Illustrated, the Miracle on Ice is the greatest moment in sports history. The article also says that hockey player Mark Johnson said that the first Russian player he shook hands with had a smile on his face. He couldn't believe it that they beat the Russians, let alone the Russian player wasn't mad. This connects to our claim that the Miracle on Ice is the most important sporting event, and it's a turning point in the Cold War because the Russians weren't mad, but they were rather impressed. This gave the USA confidence after tough times.
Taking it away for the U.S. Pavlich up ahead to Snyder. Shot goes in on Snyder.
Because of Russia's invasion of Afghanistan, President Jimmy Carter was unwilling to send players to Russia. They moved the game to Lake Placid, New York, giving USA the home field advantage. But because Jimmy Carter did not want NHL athletes playing in the match, the U.S. were severely unfavored. Playing with amateurs, the coach, Herb Brooks, would need a miracle. Because the Americans had not won a gold medal in over 20 years, it was looking like it would be impossible. To make the game even harder, the Soviet Union had won the last 4 gold medals. Leading up to the Olympics, the USA had a 60-game exhibition tour, helping the team grow more chemistry and improve. Before the big match, the U.S. and the Soviets had an exhibition game. After the tour, Coach Brooks was brutally honest about his thoughts, saying, "I've got to mix idealism with practicality. Our chances for a gold medal are very slim, if none at all. If we win a bronze this year, it'll be like winning the medal in 1960. Seeded 7th, the U.S. were put in a tough group with Sweden, Croatia, West Germany, Czechoslovakia, Romania, and Norway. They went on to beat West Germany, Romania, and Norway, finished with a solid 4-0-1 record. Despite the stellar record they had, they still were matched up against the Soviet Union. The U.S. managed to come from behind in the final minutes with the winning goal scored by their captain. In the final 10 minutes, the goal of Jim Craig was bombarded with shots, but it was not enough. The U.S. would come out victorious, showing that even with amateur athletes, they had a better system to develop them than the communism way.
Number 23, leaving it for Makarov. He tried to get it back to Golikov, then gets it back and scores. Deflected off. Net made it 1-0. Long shot, the easy save by Tretiak, but Johnson is there and scores with 1 second to play in the period. Right now the clock shows nothing, but it was stopped at 1 when we looked up as the goal was scored.
History.com states the so-called Miracle on Ice was more than just an Olympic upset. To many Americans, it was an ideological victory in the Cold War, as meaningful as the Berlin airlift or the Apollo moon landing. The upset came at an auspicious time, which proves the win was very important because the U.S. were having trouble in the Cold War, and the win helped them gain respect from their enemies. Following the victory on ice, the United States beat the Soviets in the Cold War. Many say it was because of the finance difference, but there are other possibilities. Like, if the hockey match didn't occur, then the Soviets would be full of confidence, allowing them to fight better in the war, causing them to come out victorious.
This power play opportunity. 13 seconds left in the penalty. Weak shot for Kendall. Followed by Johnson. They score! Losing it. Krutov. Up ahead to Maltsev. Maltsev on a breakaway. Maltsev gets it by Craig to get.
In conclusion, the Cold War, USA versus the Soviet Union, democracy and capitalism versus communism, plays out in a variety of forms, from the Korean War, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Cuba, and the space race. Shockingly, one of the most important Cold War competitions happened on the ice during the 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, New York. Known as the Miracle on Ice, the United States hockey team defeating the USSR is easily the most important sporting event historically and politically in world history. This is true because President Jimmy Carter was unwilling to send players to Russia. They moved the game to Lake Placid, New York, giving the USA the home field advantage. Because Jimmy Carter did not want NHL athletes playing in the match, the USA were severely unfavored, making the win more meaningful. Finally, because History.com proves that the USA were having trouble in the Cold War, the hockey win helped them gain respect from their enemies.
Overall, allowing the U.S. to win the Cold War.
U.S. team is depending a little bit too much now on Jim Craig. He's making too many good saves.
Eruzione! Mike Eruzione!